All right, I'm Rashad Miller. That's Simon Gertzen. This is round 5. Let's watch some magic. All right, welcome to round 5. This is Modern. We're at the World Championship here in Nice, France. Let's meet the players.
I'm Kentarou Yamamoto. I live in Japan at large.
Owen Turtenwald, United States, top pro points, North America.
All right, there you see the feature match area with all of the 4 matches. We're going to be giving you updates on all of these throughout the round, but we're going to be concentrating on the first table, which is Kentarou Yamamoto. Well, he's going to be playing against Owen Turtenwald. There's Kentarou. He's playing Blue-Red Delver, and there is Owen Turtenwald playing Pyromancer Ascension. Man, it's been a while since I've seen this deck.
No, I think Proto Born of the Gods, we saw a lot of Storm players do really, really well. I remember Kai Buddha and John Finkel on that deck.
That's a while ago.
It is, but it was the big modern tournament.
All right, so there we have it. The action starts off with a Taxian Probe. You got to see Kentaro's hand. Follows up with a Polluted Delta. It's going to sacrifice to go get a Steam Vents. So, Owen must have another plan for this blue mana.
That probe was super valuable because knowing that Kentarou is on Spell Snare Goif means that you are not going to expose a 2-mana spell to Spell Snare.
Right. And also, since you mentioned information about your opponent's deck, this round is the first round where the players do have access to their opponent's deck list. They actually have a list. They have access to everyone's list. And before each round, they basically trade deck lists or trade actual decks, and they get to look through the deck just to see, what's going on, just to keep the playing field fair. And there is a Serum Visions for Owen Turtenwald, and he's looking at his hand to see what cards he wants to keep on top or send to the bottom.
He's definitely looking for lands with his hand, so I think if there's no lands on top of his deck, he might be thinking if there is some way of going off with the help of Manamorphose, Goblin Electromancer, and Past in Flames, which might actually be the case.
I don't think there was land on top of that deck. But he did keep a Manamorphose, I believe. Or it was some spell of some type. Pretty sure it makes mana. Oh, it is a Sleight of Hand.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because it's more likely to find land with Sleight of Hand than to scry to the bottom.
Right. And he does find a land. He finds another Polluted Delta. No? Well, I thought I saw a Polluted Delta. Oh, there it is. He shuffled it to the back rather quickly. Polluted Delta hits the battlefield. He passes the turn.
Finding a land there, extremely valuable. And Yamamoto, no chance to use the Spell Snare, which also means that Tarmogoyf is not going to put on a huge clock onto Owen.
Right, so a breeding pool for Yamamoto. So he surveys the board. Not a lot to survey, but he's still, making sure what's going on in the graveyard. The graveyard is going to be pretty important for Owen Turtenwald because the way the Pyromancer Ascension works, if we see it this game, it actually looks at the graveyard every time you cast a spell. So it's going to be a valuable resource for Owen, or at least a valuable game state to keep track of.
The key thing here is that you do need an instant or sorcery spell already in the graveyard when you cast it. Then once you have only 2 counters on the Pyromancer Ascension, then you start to copy all of your spells, which is usually enough to win in the same turn.
So it looks like Kentarou is going to play a land, and did he pass the turn? Might have passed the turn already, content on not starting his offense with a Tarmogoyf, but instead leaving mana open for, say, a Spell Snare or so.
Yeah, what's really key here is that Yamamoto cannot allow Pyromancer Ascension to resolve. He doesn't even know if his opponent has it in his hand, but if the Ascension resolves and you're playing a deck that's really designed to play a tempo game against creature decks, then you can't really beat the Storm combo.
So now Owen does know about this Spell Snare because it was in the hand as he cast the Taxian Probe on turn 1.
Yeah, so let's take a look at what Owen's options are if he wants to play around Spell Snare. Well, you see that there's actually 5 2-mana spells in his hand. The question is if he might want to expose one of them, for example, the Goblin Electromancer, or if he just continues to craft his hand.
So is there any value or disadvantage to Owen tapping out this turn to cast a 2-mana spell just so that it gets countered?
The question is, what would Yamamoto counter? Because if you Manamorphose, he might just let it resolve, but he is going to counter some of your key spells. I don't think that this is a card that you would spell snare. Yeah, that's what Yamamoto thinks as well.
All right, so the Manamorphose resolves, and Manamorphose gives Owen 2 more mana of his choice, so he basically didn't spend any mana this turn. He drew a card, he cycled, per se, his Manamorphose, and he used it to get at least a blue mana, because now Sleight of Hand is going to get cast, so he has a mana floating. He's looking at a Gitaxian Probe and... Was that a Gitaxian Probe and a Sleight of Hand? Or what was that we were looking at?
He did take the Jackson Probe. I didn't see the other card. So he's really just trying to craft a game plan, knowing that his opponent is going to have counter magic available. Another Jackson Probe gives him even more information. And it's really great to force the Treasure Cruise playing decks into a non-interactive mode. Because look at Yamamoto's graveyard. It's a single Wooded Foothills.
That's not a very big Tarmogoyf or a very effective Treasure Cruise.
Yeah, the Manamorphose was an instant to enter the graveyards, so we are currently looking at a 3-power Tarmogoyf, but that is still not very scary and would force Yamamoto to tap out, who is playing this very patiently, but he can't be happy about his position.
Right, so we're going to sacrifice our sack land, Yamamoto says. Gets Steam Vent, so now all of the colors are present for his blue-red Delver deck, but it looks like it's got a little splash of green, so maybe we should call it a Temur Delver?
Yeah,
looks very Temur-ish.
With the Tarmogoyfs, definitely. That's the winning deck list from Grand Prix Madrid was exactly that. Playing the Tarmogoyfs because they are one of the possible trump cards in the mirror.
Here you get a look at Owen Turtenwald. And a look at Yamamoto's hand. Not a lot of really progressive cards. He can cast a Tarmogoyf and leave mana open if he'd like to rest on his spell snare, and that would give him, some type of offense just to put some pressure on Turtenwald's life total, which is already low from a lot of self-inflicted damage.
And that's what we see here. Yamamoto knows that he can't play the waiting game, especially if he only has the spell snare as his only interactive card. Well, there's Lightning Bolt targeting Goblin Electromancer, but that's usually not how your game plan wants to look like. So this way he's revealing to Owen that he only has the spell snare, not, for example, spell snare and spell pierce or spell snare and remand. But he does get down the first pressure of the game, has the option to end of turn Lightning Bolt, so could actually be winning in let's say 2 attack steps.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Owen Turtenwald still on the search for land. He's been using cantrip after cantrip. Only managed to find 2 land this game, and we are in Owen's turn 4. This isn't Yamamoto's turn 3. Or Owen's turn 3. This is the 4th turn of the game for Owen Turtenwald. He missed his land drop turn. No, he didn't miss his land drop turn 2, but he had to use a spell. He had to use a sleight of hand to try to find a land for his turn 2 drop. Used a couple of spells turn 3, still didn't find a land. So now he's using the Treasure Cruise to draw 3 cards. I'm sure he really wants one of them to be a land, and he still misses.
And that was a costly Treasure Cruise. If your hand is Past in Flames, and Pyromancer Ascension, you kind of want cards in your graveyard. So Owen is, maybe a little phased here.
He's a little disappointed. You can kind of see it in his face. He's going to have to use another cantrip to draw a card.
Yeah, no, it's not a land. 2 lands on top, of course. So, yeah, he might be forced to discard here, depending.
He's at 11 cards. Yeah. I think he might need to discard. But, the bright side, he gets to put cards back in his graveyard for a Pyromancer Ascension.
Okay. Do you think he broke it?
No. He has, something's broken, probably his mana base, but just a little unlucky.
These Storm decks do play very little lands, because once you go off, you really want to be as spell heavy as possible.
Yeah, and a lot of the cards in the deck are 1 mana, draw a card, And usually those draw card cards get to look at multiple cards. So you are really relying on those cards to draw you land. But we've seen quite a few of them and only 2 lands so far, except for the 2 that sit on the top of his deck, which, that's not in time. Owen really needed to see those earlier.
He's still not in a losing position. He just really needs to figure out how to beat the spell snare, and that might cost him a turn. That's the important part. If that turn consists of him getting lightning bolted, and then he really just has one more turn after that. If that's how it continues. Now the treasure cruise most likely did shrink the Tarmogoyf a little bit, but if Yamamoto has the lightning bolt at end of turn, then there is definitely going to be an instant in the graveyard. Oh, there's actually the Manimal Force.
Yeah, and the Tarmogoyf just grew back really big during Owen's cleanup because he needed to discard 4 cards during his end step.
Also discarding an enchantment in Pyromancer Ascension.
It looks like he discarded a lot of 1-ofs to make it more likely that he can trigger his Ascension in later turns. But he did.
Well, he discarded the Ascension, so he's not planning to win with that.
All right, so a second Tarmogoyf for Yamamoto. Yamamoto wants to put the beat down on. And right now, Tarmogoyf is a 3/4?
All right. that looks interesting here. We see the ritual. Okay, Owen was really just looking if his opponent would pull the trigger.
Yeah, and obviously he did. The ritual gets countered. Tarmogoyfs are definitely big enough to take care of that 8 life total. And Yamamoto wins game 1.
With a single 1-mana counterspell. That was it. Only a spell snap.
That's all it takes. All right, so we will have more Magic action coming for you right after this.
Outfit your Magic collection with the newest Khans of Tarkir accessories from Ultra Pro. You can see the full array of card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and portfolios of your favorite Magic artwork at ultrapro.com. You've watched the Pro Tour. How about playing on the Pro Tour? Qualifiers for Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir start December 13th, with winners earning an invitation and airfare to Brussels in April. Visit magic.wizards.com/PTQ for more information.
All right, here we are. Back at the feature match area. This is round 5 for Sean Miller and Simon Gerson in the booth. We're going to take a look at the Raphael Levy match. He is up against Ichikawa, who is playing, looks like another Temur Delver list. We saw Raphael Levy earlier playing Scape Shift, and he is well off on the Scape Shift plan with about 6 land. I think 8's the magic number.
You want to get if your opponent is on 18 or less, you want to get a Valakut and 6 Mountain, so that's 7 lands. If your opponent is on a higher life total, you need 8. And this is a rematch from the finals of Grand Prix Madrid between Emmanuel Gershenson with Temur Delver and Till Rifford with Escape Shift. So basically straight from the last Modern GP here.
It looks like we have lethal on the stack, because those are the motions of a lethal attack with a lethal prowess trigger going along with the lethal lightning book. As
if your opponent is stopping you before you write down the damage, wait, I have this lightning bolt.
Wait, I have more math for you to do. It's 4 damage. Lightning bolt does 4 damage in this deck. All right, so that was a nice little look in. So now we're going to look in on our Patrick Chapin versus Sean McLaren match. This is also still in game 1, I believe. Chapin's at 19 and McLaren is at 4. And looks like we have so it's those are the rankings. We don't have the life totals for you right now, but Lightning Helix looks like it's on the stack. And McLaren's at 2 and Chapin's at 17, so a little off. I mean, we were pretty close with the rankings versus life totals.
Yeah, just -2.
Yeah, -2 on both sides. It's just an offset of 2. Oh, Chapin's at 11 now. I keep getting updates that change the math.
There also seem to be quite a lot of spells on the stack. So we have this Izzet Charm there, we have the Lightning Helix, and Sean McLaren is just resolving a dig through time. So...
All right. Also, this Izzet Charm is targeting his own Delver of Secrets. This is in response to the Lightning Helix. Patrick Chapin doing whatever it takes so that Sean McLaren's life total stays very low.
Yeah, it's a beautiful fight where Patrick Chapin wants to kill his own Delver so that the 3 life from Lightning Hits don't happen, but Sean McLaren won the fight with the Spell Snare.
Little unorthodox Magic the Gathering going on there, but you do what you have to do when you see a game plan and a way to win. You do whatever it takes to push that advantage.
And Sean McLaren has played countless hours with his Jessica deck, which we definitely have to call it by now. Chapin looks to be out of gas here with Young Pyromancer and a token facing off against 2 Wall of Omens. And look at that hand by Sean McLaren. Dig Through Time, Path to Exile, Cryptic Command, Lightning Bolt.
Oh, he is sitting pretty. He's liking what he sees in his hand. Although, he's only at 5 life.
His life totals were a big concern on 2. I think on 5, you know that a single spell isn't going to kill you. Then you just Cryptic Command, draw, Dig Through Time for more answers. Sean has to find a way to win here somehow, but usually that's the least problem for the blue-white control decks.
Yeah, I'm sure Dig Through Time, if the time seems right, will come up with some win conditions for Sean McLaren. But right now, Patrick Chapin's off the top of his deck. He draws a card, puts it up perpendicular to the table, so we can't quite see what it is. But we're going to find out. Looks like it's a Treasure Cruise.
That can't be a bad draw here, but Sean McLaren is ready with the Cryptic Command. The interesting thing here was the decision of how many cards to delve. Now, Chapin's graveyard was quite large, so he opted to just have as much mana available as possible. In other circumstances, it sometimes is correct to delve for less so that later draw steps are more powerful.
All right, so it looks like that Treasure Cruise won't be resolving, but we're also going to go back to our main match, which is Kentarou Yamamoto. He's playing Owen Turtenwald. Kentarou is up 1-0 with his Temur Delver list, and Owen Turtenwald is going to try to Pyromancer's Ascension his way to the top of this match. But he's down a game, so he's got a couple of games to play through.
I wasn't impressed by how his whole game plan was stopped by a single Spell Snare. Now his draws didn't really cooperate, but that didn't really look too impressive. It might have been correct by Owen to bait the Spell Snare with Pyromancer Ascension and then try to go off with his rituals, because the way he tried to go about things, he just scooped to the single Spell Snare.
Yeah. All right. There you get a look at Owen Turtenwald's stats. Impressive stats for a young man of 25 years old. Look at that. That's 16 top 8 Grand Prix. 7 of those were in 1 year, 2011. That's just incredible.
He's insane at the Grand Prix. They call him X and Owen for a reason.
What's that?
Because he always XOs especially sealed. That's his favorite format.
Oh, I get it.
Do you get it?
Yeah, thanks.
It's not. I don't take credit for that.
Oh, who should we credit?
Probably Luis Scott Vargas. That's usually who to give credit for.
Yeah, that seems quite up his alley. All right, so a Thought Scour puts a couple of cards, one of them being a Treasure Cruise to the graveyard, draws on, looks like it might have been land. Looks like he's not going to have the same land troubles that he did in the previous game. All right, and we also have a result in our feature match area. Shahar Shinhar, who's playing the Cruise Burn deck that we saw last round, he won 2-0 over Stanislav Sivka, who's playing Blue-Red Delver, similar to the matchup that he had in his first round, that Shahar played against in his first round, except now Shahar is on the victory side.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we see that Owen is really just filling his graveyard with Thought Scour, and Insecta Aberration, now the flip side of Delver of Secrets, means that the pressure is there for Yamamoto. The question is, are the answers also there?
Well, there aren't a lot of answers that you need if Insecta Aberration gets to attack for quite a few turns. But Pyromancer's Ascension, it can win out of nowhere.
And even if Owen goes down to 18 from the fetch land he has in play, that's 6 turns of Delver beatdown, Insect Aberration beatdown. So that's definitely not the amount of turns that Yamamoto wants to give his opponent.
Yeah, and Yamamoto's turn is still pretty young. He hasn't used his mana yet. He gets to make a land drop for the turn. So there could be more pressure coming. He does have a Monastery Swift Spear in his hand. He could use that alongside a Lightning Bolt if he really wanted to. He could have played the Swift Spear pre-combat, which would have given him extra damage, but it looks like he wants to save mana for that Deprive in his hand.
Yeah, he can also just cast Charmgrove, and this is once again this decision point where are you happy with the amount of pressure you have, or do you think I have to have this opening to put out more pressure? Last game, Yamamoto decided correctly that he could not let Ascension resolve. This time, it might be, yeah, he's not going to hold up Deprive.
Right.
But rather wants to get the Swift Spear going.
So he was probably a little bit indecisive with that turn, because if the plan was to attack with that Swift Spear, he probably wanted to play the Swift Spear before he used the mana for the Gataxian Probe, just to get one more damage.
Well, we don't know what he drew, so
it could have been the draw for the Gataxian Probe.
Well, one
also.
thing that's really interesting here is that Yamamoto is representing Spell Snare or Spell Pierce, but doesn't actually have it. But he knows from game one that Owen respects the fact that counter magic is a big foil to his plans.
Yeah, I mean that respect was well deserved because he saw it in his hand.
In this case, yes.
Yeah, but right now there wasn't any Gataxian Probes over from Owen's side, but you still have to evaluate whether or not it's worth it to ignore a possible counter spell in your opponent's hand when you only have one spell that's worth countering.
Yamamoto also saw Turtenwald's hand, so he knows that if Turtenwald goes for Goblin Electromancer followed by Manamorphose, then he can still Lightning Bolt the Electromancer before it goes out of hand.
Yeah, Yamamoto's hand is very interactive with what Owen Turtenwald is able to do, at least for this turn.
Yeah, and the amount of pressure he's putting on has definitely increased. I would expect Yamamoto not to use the Lightning Bolt if he has if Owen just passes the turn, but rather to try to untap into Lightning Bolt and Deprive, maybe even find a third untapped mana source to cast both in the same turn.
Right,
and
so
Owen,
there is the Goblin Electromancer. Looks like it's going to resolve. Now, that's the turn. Wow.
I like the patience here, and you see that even though Storm is a combo deck, this is a highly interactive game where both players are, even with a single mana open, they have to really respect what's going on here.
And now the decisions whether or not to deal with that Electromancer at the end of Owen's turn is going through Kentaro's mind.
Yeah, one thing that's important is the fact that the Storm deck, in general, can only go off in the main phase. So you are not usually afraid of there being a kill out of nowhere if you tap out in the opponent's end of turn.
Now, with Kentaro thinking this long about this decision, if he then in turns does Lightning Bolt the Electromancer, is there some information that Owen gains that maybe that was the only answer that, or the only way that Yamamoto has to interact with his deck because it's such a big decision point for him?
It is quite telling that you think about this decision at this point so much. I think, and I'm sure that some players would do this, that you have to think through all the options when the Electromancer is on the stack, because you're also representing Spell Snare that way. And that leaves Owen in the dark as to the contents of your hand.
Yeah. I believe that the Electromancer might have already resolved and Owen passed the turn.
Exactly. This is the end of turn. But
Right.
I'm not saying that Yamamoto had to do anything with the Electromancer on the stack, but he had to do the thinking with the Electromancer on the stack.
Right.
Because this was definitely a tell as to that the way that he thought about this, it had to be Lightning Bolt and no other card, effectively.
Right. And
now,
if he didn't Lightning Bolt, what would that mean?
he doesn't Lightning Bolt. That's the point. But the question is, does he Lightning Bolt after he untaps? That's the big question. Now that Owen knows about the Lightning Bolt, more or less. And Yamamoto did not really represent Spell Snare. There might be other counter magic, but Spell Snare was definitely not represented by him.
Right, so Yamamoto goes into his turn, and he starts off with Gataxian Probe again. That might be is that the second or the third?
Yeah, it's definitely the second time that we're seeing Owen's hand, and Yamamoto has the information advantage this game.
see a Dispel for Owen Turtenwald. So he has the 1 mana open. Was there to protect his Goblin Electromancer. and
That's
it's
the
still
reason
there.
why he ran it out and why he still didn't want to go for Mana Morphos. If he gets his Electromancer to survive and he untaps into Mana Morphos, draw step, plus whatever he gets to draw, there is a very reasonable chance that he just gets to go off.
All right, so a third land for Yamamoto. Attacks with both creatures. Owen cannot block here. The threat of that becoming a 2/3 is definitely, a reason for Owen to allow this damage to go through. But Lightning Bolt's going to take it out unless Owen decides to protect it with a Dispel. But Yamamoto has 2 blue available and a Deprive in hand.
Yeah,
Looks like he's going to go for it.
he's also going to use it, but it's still the correct play to dispel the Lightning Bolt because keeping the Electromancer around this turn would be a great way for Owen to win. Looks like Yamamoto also drew into a Treasure Cruise, which is unlikely to get cast here if you're depriving, that's pretty much given, but it is fuel for next turn.
All right, so Deprive is a hard counter spell in the fact that it unconditionally counters the spell that it targets if it resolves. But there's additional costs. You need to return a land to your hand. That's why the island is going back to Yamamoto's hand. And the Goblin Electromancer goes bye-bye. Owen goes down to 13 from that attack. And now Owen has to see what else he can come up with.
Now he has the Gitaxian Probe, but he needed that information earlier to make his make better informed plays. Although he almost played as if he had full knowledge of what his opponent was doing, I think, especially after the long pause. I'm just afraid that he doesn't really have what it takes to go off here, and that he's kind of just going to have to try it in the dark. He fetches to thin out his deck a little bit, and we are looking at 3 more draw steps. Probe, Mana Morphos. So you're trying to look to find Past in Flames, maybe an Electromancer with an early one of these draw steps. Treasure Cruise, maybe.
Yeah, Owen's actually down to 5 life from that attack, so it might be now or never. He's going to have to trust in the top of his deck. He's got 3 draw steps to do it. He's going to get mana for all of those. One of the draw steps is free and the other 2 are also free, and he has a ritual. So he's just looking for that one card that gets him a bunch of spells or, Past in Flames. Perfect card.
Serum Visions is a start because it does let you look at more cards, and the Scry is actually relevant because you have 2 more draw abilities that you can put on the stack later. You see a blue mana being used for Serum Visions. That's an Electromancer, which is a great way to generate extra mana.
But is it going to be enough mana for him to go off?
Well, he still needs something to go off with. That's the main concern here.
He does have another Mana Morphos, and he still has the Taxian Pro. So he can look at 2 more cards after this. If those 2 cards are very good on the top of Owen's deck, he can choose to draw them at a low price of 0 mana. Actually, -1 mana if he plays the Goblin Electromancer, which he's going to do.
Yeah, so the ritual did get cheaper. Let's see what Owen has here.
So there is a Desperate Ritual. He's got mana floating over there. He's got 5 mana floating. Not sure what the colors are.
Is it a Treasure Cruise?
That is a Treasure Cruise, and that's going to be for 1 mana and 7 cards, I'm going to assume. 5 is the Storm count.
Yeah, now 6, I think.
So we all know when a Storm player starts counting up the Storm count, it's now or never, or he's already got it.
Yeah, and Peach Garden Oath on Storm here, not only in Vintage Masters, but also in Modern. Not that Owen got to draft Storm because Huey Jensen was not having any of it.
Quiet down, son. I'm drafting the Storm deck here. So, but Owen's like, you know what? I'll get to play Storm a little bit later today. It's okay. You can have it, Huey.
Yeah, there we see him.
Thinking long and hard about how to win this game.
Yeah, but he drew 2 more rituals, so mana is not an issue anymore. And Gitaxian Probe is the card that he wants to use to find something else here.
Yeah, looks like he wants to at least know, even though Yamamoto is tapped out. He definitely wants the card there.
Pyromancer Ascension.
Might be a little bit too late.
I'm not sure
Somebody
if
used a lot
he
of
gets
cards.
to see extra cards here. anymore. There's no Past in Flames in his graveyard, so he hasn't found a Past in Flames. He hasn't drawn into another Treasure Cruise.
He has a Past in Flames in hand, looks like. Or is that a Pyrite ritual?
No, that's the problem. It's a Pyromancer Ascension. So he managed to go off in quotation marks, but he did not manage to actually churn through his deck.
Yeah, and Owen's down again. Yamamoto leads 1-0, so looks like that Goblin Electromaster is going to bite one. He's going to take one for the team.
Yeah, that must have been like two really frustrating games for Owen, because in both games his deck just didn't really seem like it was cooperating. And then when you compare that to the Jeskai Ascendancy combo deck that we saw Josh play, it was like, yeah, I'm playing and I always have access to everything, and oh, you have 2 Abrupt Decay and a Murderous Cut. I'm just going to win anyway.
And the way that these games have really panned out, especially with Owen doing a lot of damage to himself, Yamamoto hasn't had to put up a lot of offense to finish him off. Owen's down to 5 already, and really there's only been 2 really effective attacks from Kentarou this game.
Yamamoto is just being rewarded here for being very patient, knowing when to leave up mana and when to pick his fights, and he really played to his outs. He needed Owen to not have it here, which sometimes happens, and this time Owen didn't have it. Now Yamamoto is looking for that lightning bolt, and he finds it off Serum Vision, so I think that's lethal if he just bolts either Owen or the Electromancer.
And he has a second one just for backup, just in case, but I don't need that lightning bolt. This one upside down lightning bolt's all I need. So let's look at your hand just to see what you're going to die with. Shows him a couple of rituals in the land. Lightning Bolt's going to take the Goblin Electromaster, and Owen just extends the hand. Kentarou Yamamoto wins 2-0 over Owen Turtenwald. Blue-Red Delver, or Temur Delver, takes it over Pyromancer's Ascension. All right, so we are going to move over to the Patrick Chapin versus Sean McLaren match. This is Blue-Red Delver, no green, versus Jeskai, no combo. And they are just starting game 2, and it looks like Sean McLaren's up a game.
Yeah, we saw the end of that, or not the end, but we saw what finished Patrick Chapin. That was the exchange where Lightning Helix was allowed to resolve after Is It Charming, the Delver got stopped by Spell Snare.
And that 3 damage was actually super important. Both the players fought over whether or not the Lightning Helix resolved in any way, fashion, or form, and Sean McLaren was able to get it to resolve and gain 3 life. Goes up to 5.
Sean kept a 1-lander here. He had a Lightning Bolt for his opponent's Monastery Swift Spear. He's also on the draw, so he took the risk. Now, Gitaxian Probe, already one of the most important spells in this format.
And he gets to sheepishly reveal the, questionable keep from, what some people would say, yeah, that 1-lander on the draw, maybe you want to have more castable spells.
I like the keep, but it is a risk that you have to take, and so you clearly don't have to be embarrassed to show it to your opponent. The thing is that fetching a Sacred Foundry also means that you aren't spell snaring anything. So Sean really on a control plan here with...
So his plan was to be able to use the Lightning Bolt and the Path to Exile.
Exactly. And there is Arid Mesa. So now we do have the blue mana.
Now we are in business. Do you go on the proactive play where you play a Wall of Omens? Do you hold up Mana Leak?
It's
a lot of options.
It's interesting that you really want to resolve the Wall of Omens because it's basically the best blocker for your opponent's creature. On the other hand, you want to fetch blue mana, which you can only do with Pain with the help of Arid Mesa. So Sean McLaren might want to delay this for 1 turn to have, better life total management, but it looks like he's fetching, so then it has to be for blue source.
Yeah, he's going to go for it. He has a Steam Vents put at the top of his library. Plays it. He's going to pay 2 life, so effectively lightning bolting himself.
Yeah, Wall of Omens is just tremendous here. If Chapin doesn't point a lightning bolt at the wall when it blocks, then Sean has the blocker stick around and draws a card, which could be another land, which he's clearly looking for.
Right, so lightning bolt in Patrick Chapin's hand. Is it going to target that Wall of Omens? I don't think that red card's a lightning bolt. He does as a it's a charm. That could do the same job. But it looks like Patrick Chapin needs to draw another land. Or does he? Well, there's one right there.
So he did find his land as well, but a bit later.
So it looks like the wall's going to stick around for at least one more turn. But that's also going to give Sean McLaren the opportunity to untap and either have counter magic available or start, a game plan of his own. He did not get a land off of that wall of arms, which is really wants.
Yeah, the fact that Patrick didn't have his land drop there, had to first thought scour himself, means that Sean is really being rewarded for that wall of omens because the life loss he took from the untapped steam bands has already been compensated for.
Right, 2 blocks from it effectively saved him 3 damage, so that is exactly lightning bolt. It looks like that might be a blood moon. Is that a blood moon in
Patrick
Chapin's hand?
kept a 1-land blood moon hand on the play. If you rattle off the lands, that's incredibly potent. If not, it is a clunky card that somewhat plays into Sean McLaren's game plan of just sitting there with a wall and a Path to Exile and a mana leak.
Right, and Blood Moon maybe not the most effective answer or disruption spell against a deck that has a lot of red spells, but right now it would stop all of Sean McLaren's counter magic.
So what we do see here is a Treasure Cruise.
Treasure Cruise for Patrick Chapin. He's gonna draw 3 cards. He's not gonna have a graveyard left over, but he's probably not too concerned about that.
So Sean McLaren is
staring at 2 mana leaks and a negate.
Yeah, so he's really just deciding which of these spells to use. And the mana leak looks like it's safe, but of course it's getting spell pierced. That was pretty much telegraphed by Chapin here.
Right, so the Treasure Cruise resolves, and 2 more cruises. Buy 1, get 2 free. That's the type of cruise deal I need. There's also a remand in there, just to get a little more defense for those Treasure Cruises a little later on. The attack from the Monastery Swift Spear gets blocked by the Wall of Omens. We knew that was going to happen. Not really exciting, but still no 3rd land for Sean McLaren.
Well, Sean did expose his wall here by blocking. If Chapin has another instant to pump his Swift Spear, then the wall goes down. Now, we could actually see Sean Path to Exile his wall at some point to actually get the lands that he's needing. There's 2 things. Well, Patrick is drawing out of his mana issues with the help of Treasure Cruise, and Sean is the controller. He really needs those lands.
So there's a young Pyromancer. That's going to threaten to put quite a few 1/1 elementals on the board.
Did you see that? Treasure Cruise, Treasure Cruise, Treasure Cruise? 3 Treasure Cruises in Chapin's hand.
And a remand, and a couple of counter spells to protect it, and a Blood Moon that probably doesn't even need to come out and play this game.
No, it doesn't seem like the card that is still relevant here.
I don't think Patrick can go on all those cruises anyway this game. Might get seasick.
No, Chapin is punishing Sean here for only having a single blue. Spellsnare on Young Pyromancer remanded, and Sean can't even recast it.
All he can do is look at this draw step that did not come up with a 3rd land just yet. Little disappointed, but he's up a game, so even if he falls because of lack of mana, still has another chance to take this match.
Right.
But Patrick Chapin wants to take this game right now because he smells some blood.
I think that Sean is going to cast Path to Exile here, but he has to decide if he wants to kill Young Pyromancer because it's just threatening to grow out of control, or if he might want to target his Wall of Omens. That ensures that he's going to be able to cast Electrolyze next turn, and Patrick Chapin is currently tapped out.
Oh, so he does. He's going to go with the Path, my own wall, just to ensure that I get a 3rd land, and it's going to be an island. So if that Blood Moon were to come out, Sean McLaren will still have access to blue mana, which is the most important given the state of his hand.
Yeah, I really like this play of casting Path to Exile, not on the Pyromancer, which you might think would be natural, but rather your own creature draws a land, which is definitely about time, and then Electrolyze or maybe another burn spell to take out the Pyromancer.
And it looks like it's going to be Electrolyze. And Electrolyze is going to take out the Pyromancer. 1 more damage to Chapin. Yep. He's going to get to draw a card.
another board state where Arc Trail would have been phenomenal.
Oh, Arc Trail would have just been a blowout. But Electrolyze draws you a card. So, kind of the same thing. 2 for 1 or 1 for 1 and you get a card. Card economy-wise,
Yes,
all
but
the same.
the fact that Arc Trail is only 2 mana makes a big difference. In these games we've seen, everybody has always been operating with very little mana, playing very well, just a lot of spells.
All right, so Patrick Chapin untaps. He's taking his turn now. He's still looking at those 3 treasure cruises. He used a remand already. He has a Blood Moon. Blood Moon not as effective as it was 1 turn ago before the Path of Exile that Sean used to get an island at the sacrifice of his Wall of Omens, which already drew him a card. So that Wall of Omens, kind of a little card advantage.
It's one of the key cards in the deck.
Chapin's got that Blood Moon to the top. You think he really wants to play it? It still has opportunity to... It does actually have the opportunity to even shut out of white. If there's a basic plains in Sean McLaren's deck, that Flood Plains can be sacrificed in response to the Blood Moon.
I can confirm that Sean McLaren has 1 of each basic to fetch. Now, the Mountain you clearly don't need to fetch for against Blood Moon protection, but it is relevant sometimes that you don't take additional damage when looking for a red source.
Yeah, all of a sudden, Patrick Chapin's hand isn't looking all that exciting. One of those treasure cruisers he could probably cast right now. He doesn't really need to. But the other 2, can you really expect to have the resources to cast 4 treasure cruisers
Well,
in one game?
if you get to cast the first one of these, which is actually the second one, would be the second one of the game, then you are also quite likely to keep going. If this resolves, it draws you 3 cards. So filling up your graveyard actually not that difficult. Also, the longer the game goes, the more likely you are to just find additional fetch lands, which are an additional land to cast the cruise and a fetch land in the graveyard.
All right, so he found a Jataxian Probe with this treasure cruise, along with a fetch land that you were just mentioning. A couple of triggers is going to get the Prowess up on the Monastery Swiss Sphere, so that guy is a 3/4 right now. Shows off the hand of quite a few counter spells. There you get look at Mr. McLaren.
Sean has to be happy that he gets to electrolyze the Monastery Swift Spear here potentially, depending on if Chapin doesn't have an untapped land. And then his counter wall looks good. Now with Patrick Chapin just having a Flooded Strand, that makes a big difference.
Right, he's also has a Dispel, Patrick Chapin. So not only does he get to counter the first burn spell that targets the Swiss Sphere, but that trigger is going to make it so that it's not at 3 toughness. So Electrolyze wouldn't be good enough anymore.
That's the point. If you electrolyze the Swift Sphere and your opponent has a Dispel in response, it doesn't even help to counter back. You really need to top deck a Lightning Bolt at that stage.
It's definitely a situation where you would need 2 red burn spells. Sean McLaren only has 1, has a bunch of counter spells, few spell snares. Not particularly good right now, with what's in Patrick Chapin's hand. But, they could get good. A lot of the threats in the blue-red Delver deck cost 2 mana. Oh, does Patrick have to discard? He does have to discard. He discards a Young Pyromancer, so he's playing around those spell piercers that he knows about. Knows this guy isn't going to resolve, so might as well put him in the graveyard. Feed the treasure cruise for next turn.
From what I've seen so far, Patrick Chapin has played very impressive Magic. It's just that every turn seems to be very well thought out, and he knows exactly what he wants to be doing with his deck. I don't even think that he is going to be the one with the best decks in the room, but if he plays them so well, that's definitely going to be more important than having the perfect list.
All right, so Restoration Angel. Just down as a sorcery speed creature, 3/4 on the board.
That's a play that not a lot of people would have made. If a creature has flash, you are still allowed to play it in your own turn, and Sean
But do you have to
McLaren
do
is
it like during your upkeep or something?
yeah. End of turn, I play my own Restoration Angel. Now the thing is, that way he plays around counter magic, and it's actually the only way he can stem the bleeding. He knows that if he goes for anything else, Patrick Chapin will be ready with the response.
Patrick Chapin, at the end of the turn, is going to fetch out a Steam Vent. He's going to put it into play tap. So he's ready to start his turn with a brand new card to see if he can find an answer to this Restoration Angel. Because if he can get that Angel out of the way, Monastery Swiftspear is pretty good at taking out low life totals.
I think it's more likely that we see Patrick just fuel up on prowess triggers. So if he plays 3 non-creature spells, he can attack, and Sean is faced with the decision of chump blocking with Restoration Angel, or taking so much damage that the Restoration Angel is just sitting, watching from the sidelines.
Yeah, Sean McLaren only has 1 blue mana available, so he can only really fight back with those spell snares. Only 1 card in Patrick Chapin's hand can get spell snared, but it's a good one. It's a charm. That would probably love to be part of this prowess triggering that happens, either as a counter spell or as a way to draw cards and just to keep the fuel going. Put some cards in the graveyard for those treasure cruises.
That's the great thing about the blue-red Delver deck. If you have Monastery Swiftspear or a Young Pyromancer in play, you don't really care if you're winning the counter battles, because you're getting value either way.
Chapin's counting it up. Looks like he's going to sacrifice a Scald in turn. No, he's not.
We might still be seeing him on the Blood Moon plan. He also has to be really careful about his own life total. 8 is so little that an attack by Restoration Angel, an Electrolyze, and a Lightning Bolt can just kill him out of nowhere.
So you're saying 8 isn't enough?
Well, sometimes it isn't.
Well, but sometimes it is.
So we do see the block. So Sean has no intentions of playing this overly aggressively,
I got a 7.
which I think he would consider more if he actually had a Lightning Bolt in hand.
Now, I don't know, does Patrick actually have enough instants to play right now during combat to get his Swiftspear up to a point where it doesn't die to this Restoration Angel? Or are we just looking at a trade with the Izzet Charm? Izzet Charm deal 2 damage, pop my Swiftspear, and Electrolyze?
Yeah, Electrolyze basically would do the same thing, but you also get to draw a card. And then the thing is, if your opponent counters back to protect the angel, then you still get to win the counter war and grow your Swiftspear accordingly. I think Electrolyze here is fine, and Izzet Charm is also a fine play. I don't think you want to dispel your own card, because then you only reach 3 power on the Swiftspear. So it's going to be 2 damage on Restoration Angel. Keep in mind that all of this fuels Treasure Cruise, which is kind of the overall plan for Patrick here. Oh, is
And it looks like it resolved.
Electrolyze as well. But then, is this...
I'm curious, why would you let the Electrolyze... I mean,
it's
when
possible
does
that
Izzet Charm resolve?
it's actually very possible that we are seeing this actually before blockers.
There was definitely a push, the Restoration Angel. Yeah,
Okay, so blockers have happened. I think that Patrick might have wanted to stop his opponent from blocking first.
Yeah, this is interesting. If you're just going to deal 4 damage with spells, why would you not want to just deal the damage with your creature? I don't know. And if you're Sean McLaren, why not use one of those 2 spell snares on a spell that you know you can counter?
Well, he only has a single island in his deck, so that would have been a three life spell snare.
Oh, okay.
Or
That's pretty
actually, let's say
pricey.
a 2 life spell snare, because the Fashion is it will cost him a life anyway.
Mm-hmm. That's a steep price to pay. Wasn't sure about the only having 1 basic land, but a lot of these decks do cheat on the basic lands and just have 1 just in case of Blood Moon, which is sitting in Patrick Chapin's hand. It looks like Blood Moon's going to go bye-bye. Finally abandoning that plan.
Yeah, it hasn't really been Chapin's plan ever since he missed his second land drop and knew that he had to win in another way. With all the treasure cruises, you aren't getting punished as much for having a dead card in your hand. That used to be different when you didn't really have that powerful card draw options available.
But he chooses to keep the Blood Moon. Discards a land instead.
It actually triggers a Monastery Swiftspear and might force a response from Sean, who, if he isn't careful and taps out of white and blue, might not even be able to let Blood Moon resolve, for the danger of just being left with only untapped mountains. And see how he sorts his lands? Which of these piles is he going to tap?
Right. I don't know. And Patrick Chapin actually has 6 land in place, so he's getting close to those being able to cast the Blood Moon and still having plenty of mana left to do other things.
Yeah.
So Electrolyze is going to target the Monastery Swift Bear while Patrick Chapin's tapped out. And it goes to the bin. 5 life from Sean McLaren. He's holding on to it. Patrick Chapin's at 7. Nobody has any creatures on the board. Patrick Chapin's going to have initiative this turn. Looks at his hand, and he sees a Dispel fresh off the top. No creatures. He does have 1 Young Pyromancer, but that thing is very susceptible to Spell Snare.
He also has a Harvest Pyre, which I wouldn't really think of as an important card in this matchup, but I guess the 4 toughness creatures are really a problem for the blue-red Delver deck. So at this point, it's very possible that you just announce a Blood Moon and see what happens. But Chapin is out of creatures to deal damage this turn, so he would have to rebuild with Young Pyromancer if that was his plan.
Now, Sean already has an island and a plains on the battlefield. How dangerous is it that a Blood Moon resolves?
I think it would only basically be used for the single turn that Chapin has here, in the sense that he plays the Blood Moon, and if Sean lets it resolve, then Patrick has 1 turn to resolve whatever he wants. So he could use the Blood Moon as a silence against Spell Snare, for example, if he plays the Young Pyromancer post-combat. And then next turn, Sean McLaren will only have a single blue. So there is no playing 2 Spell Snares, a Mana Leak, and a Negate in the same turn anymore. I think that Blood Moon is a great counterbait here.
All right, so 3 non-basic lands get tapped, so we know what that means. Blood Moon is hitting the battlefield,
But
or at least a stack.
But Patrick is keeping up 3 islands?
Guess Patrick doesn't plan on casting a red spell unless he has a land in his hand. Doesn't look like he has another land in his hand.
No, I think he doesn't even want to try to go for Young Pyromancer, but rather wants to draw into...
Oh, there
Trying
is
to
a
burn?
second island in Sean McLaren's list.
There is. Yeah, I just saw 3 once right after each other, but it was actually 2 islands. I'm sorry about that.
No, I mean it's still an interesting decision point. If he had an island, he could have used that and used a spell snare on that Izzet Charm, especially in the situation that he was in. But right now we are a few turns after that, and the Serum Visions is going to come down after the Blood Moon has resolved. So Blood Moon's in play. Sean McLaren still has 2 blue mana available for the rest of his turns. And a Mana Leak is going to be used on one of them to stop the Serum Visions.
So
That's
the
aggressive.
Yeah, that's very aggressive. And the Treasure Cruise count is currently at 6. 2 untapped islands and 4 cards in the graveyard. With the Gitaxian Probe, it's up to 7. So I think Chapin just engineered this game so that he would be able to maybe Treasure Cruise this turn.
Looks like he's going to. He played a blue mana for a Gitaxian Probe. Gets to see what he's up against. It's the 2 spell snares that's been in Sean McLaren's hand for quite a while, and the gate that would be very powerful against this Treasure Cruise, but he's tapped out right now. So 1 blue mana, bunch of cards in the graveyard.
Yeah, but he doesn't get
And
the
he
Treasure
passes.
Cruise. Yeah, he can't cast the Treasure Cruise. He was a bit far off from that. He does have all the reactive cards in the world, so he gets to dispel whatever he wants. He even has a Harvest Pyre if Sean has something aggressive. And the fact that Patrick is on 7 means that two Lightning Bolts are not going to be good enough.
All right, so another island for Patrick Chapin. He's got 4 blue sources now. That Blood Moon is making all non-basic land into mountains. So effectively, Patrick Chapin has 4 islands and 3 mountains, and Sean McLaren has 2 islands, a plains, and 4 mountains. And there is a Treasure Cruise for 3 mana and 5 cards.
Yeah, I was going to say you have to keep more islands untapped because you don't want to Treasure Cruise with red, blue if your hand is a double dispel.
All right, so there's a fight over this cruise. Negate comes down, Dispel gets Negate, and the cruise resolves. 3 cards for Patrick Chapin. Looks like a couple spell snares of his own and a land. Ooh, and an Anger of the Gods. So Patrick Chapin is ready for the next creature that comes out. If a creature comes out, it is going to die.
Sean McLaren, you mean?
Oh, Sean McLaren has the Anger of the Gods. I'm thinking of the Harvest Pyre.
Yeah, the problem is that Patrick Chapin will need some time to win here because Spell Snare, Anger of the Gods is an issue. But now he's just really aggressive. And you see what Blood Moon is doing here? It's really just more of a defense grid kind of card. it's not there to not allow your opponent to cast spells.
Just to limit the possibilities.
Once you know that your opponent is on at most 2 blue sources for the rest of the game, that's a very, very potent information to have in a deck that wants to simply resolve Treasure Cruise and go from there.
All right, so that Anger the Guys does find a creature to kill, and it is a Pyrite, a young Pyromancer. Pyromancer down, no offense for Patrick Chapin yet again, but he still has a lot of gas in hand. He can fuel his hand. He just drew a Thought Scour, puts more fuel in the fire for the Treasure Cruise.
I have to say, Rashad, we really underestimated the impact of Blood Moon on this game. It wasn't apparent at first, and it seemed like Chapin had abandoned the plan, but he still knew that it would be a key card to resolve his spells in such a critical phase of the game even.
Yeah, you don't usually see Blood Moon playing such a big part in the late stages of the game. It's usually an early stage disruption, and you're able to just take the game on the back of that. But right now, it's really hampering Sean McLaren's board state. It's basically Stone Rain-esque. You get to blow up 3 of Sean McLaren's land. He doesn't really get to play the same game that he was playing before.
In a sense, it's almost virtual card advantage, because if only the islands count, then Sean McLaren is just severely limited in his resources.
Right, so a Delver Secrets is going to come down, try to put on another offense for Patrick Chapin, and right off the top, there's an answer for Sean McLaren, and it's a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, which he can cast now that Patrick Chapin is tapped out of red mana thanks to Blood Moon here. Still not sure what the Harvest Pyre is doing there, but now,
it's you just wait. It's gonna kill something.
Yeah, I have the feeling that Patrick has this matchup figured out. He had the matchup against Shanha figured out, who was on burn. He has this matchup figured out, and now that I see how Game 2 went, I'm very optimistic for Chapin in Game 3. Should it come to that.
All right, so we are in the draw-go phase. A bunch of land drops and passing at a turn. Sean McLaren picks up a nice one, a Threads of Disloyalty, which doesn't have any targets, but in Patrick Chapin's deck, there are some good creatures that he can take. None are here now, but soon. Patrick Chapin looks at his hand. He's trying to figure out how he can... It's so close. Sean McLaren's at 4 life. He's at 7. This game should be close to ending, but it doesn't look like we're that close. And
no, he's also still playing around the Spell Snare, and the Spell Snare is exactly the answer you want for Snapcaster Mage. So now Patrick, once again, is forced to negate back, and he had to do it in his main phase to be able to flashback a sorcery from his graveyard. If he had an instant there, I think we would have seen this battle occur on Sean McLaren's end of turn step, which would have been even better with regards to tapping your opponent out.
All right,
now even Threats of Disloyalty can take over the Snapcaster Mage.
All right, so we have another result in our feature match area. Yuki Ichikawa wins 2-1 over Raphael Levy. This is our last match. So this is actually a pretty interesting decision point here. There's a mana leak for Sean McLaren and a Threats of Disloyalty. So this gives Threats of Disloyalty a target.
Yeah, and he's on 4 life, so he doesn't have much choice from there. The problem is that there isn't much he can draw that gets him back into this. So it really depends on which kind of like heavy hitters does he have. Cryptic Command, not good if you're under so much pressure. Maybe even Wall of Omens into something else here.
Yeah, but the Treasure Cruise has resolved every... Captain Patrick Chapin resolved every Treasure Cruise in his deck.
Oh, and flashed one back.
Yeah, and he flashed one back. So is this the record? Are we on the world?
So it's 5 out of a maximum of 8?
It is.
The ceiling is pretty high on that.
Yeah, the ceiling's kind of high. I think the Pyromancer Ascension decks can cast a few more times. But for any non-Ascension deck, I think 5's the limit. Or at least 5's a pretty good ceiling. Yeah. But, I mean, all jokes aside, 3 extra cards, especially in this situation, just look at the card advantage that's going on. Look at the deck size discrepancies. Sean McLaren has a full deck in front of him. Well, while Patrick Chapin is down to like 7, 8, 9 cards, half of his deck is sitting off on the the off-camera zone, all exiled because of all the treasure cruises he's cast.
And the big question here is, how much burn does Patrick have left in his deck? He had to take out some burn spells against this control deck.
He doesn't need that much. I mean, Sean's only at 4. And not to mention, Snapcaster Mage does a good job of attacking for 2. I mean, be it there's a Snapcaster Mage on the other side, but Patrick Chapin still has some other threats in his hand. He has a young Pyromancer out as well.
Yeah, but Sean has some threats of his own.
Well,
opted not to go for it though.
Right.
I think going down to 2 here could be the deciding factor.
Yeah.
Patrick has as many lands as if he was playing 5-color control.
and I think there's going to be young Pyromancer, and it is. So this is going to allow Patrick to not only fight any battles that he needs to, but get a little bonus 1/1, which, these 1/1s are going to... A 1/1 doesn't take very long to get rid of 2 life total from your opponent.
I'm just waiting for the Harvest Pyre for 0 to get a code. Oh, now the Harvest Pyre for 1 is also quite interesting.
But Mana Leak is going to force Sean to make a decision. Tap 3 or cast a Mana Leak of Yon. It's going to be tap 3. And now Spell Pierce is going to finish it off, and that's it.
Yeah, this game was heavily favoring Patrick. Once his treasure cruiser started going, Sean McLaren really never got anything going, and that Blood Moon had a very interesting effect on the game.
Yeah, it definitely more of an effect than I thought it would. I'm used to playing Blood Moons on the first turn of the game.
This was not the as soon as possible Blood Moon.
Yeah.
You don't cast any spells.
So you're saying this wasn't Berlin 2008?
Yeah, there's still decks that try to do this.
I think when the modern environment was brought about, there was a lot of thought in making sure things like that didn't happen, because a lot of the 1 mana, all of the 1 mana and fewer casting cost cards that gave you mana, those aren't really legal.
Yeah.
Like Rite of Flame. Rite of Flame was a big one, and Chromox. They're gone. You can't play those in Modern. Those were banned before Modern, even before anyone played a single game of sanctioned Modern. Right now, you still have, you have access to the 2 mana rituals, which give you, in theory, a second turn Blood Moon. But that's still pretty early, especially if you're on a draw. But
I think the problem is rather that with fetch lands, there's also like a lot of basic lands. So it's just not viable to have a strategy that just wants Blood Moon. This isn't Legacy where you can then just have a lot of heavy hitters and fast mana that sticks around. You really need to invest a lot into it.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have, if I were in Chapin's seats, I probably wouldn't have thought of bringing in Blood Moon against a deck with any red mana. I mean, it usually it's just off my radar. You can cast spells with red mana. I don't want to play Blood Moon against you, but when you're playing 3 colors, your blue mana your blue mana just gets hampered a lot with 1 Blood Moon, no matter what phase of the game it is.
And now we've actually seen this in action. We look at the deck list from Sean. He's playing these 4 Dig Through Time, and Dig Through Time will never be used in response to find a reactive spell. That's already a huge upside when you have the Blood Moon in play.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, looking at sideboards again. Well, actually, first, Sean had a big stumble in the beginning of that game. He missed a couple of land drops. He was stuck on 2 for... He was actually stuck on 1 for 1 turn. It's 2 for a while. If that hadn't happened, how different did that game go? How different would have that game go?
I was surprised how little of an impact it had, because the reactive cards of Sean were counters, and Patrick can play around these counters even if Sean has lands. It's clear that it would have been better, but this game progressed to a point where Sean was definitely not restricted on mana. That was not his issue. His problem was that his answers didn't stack up to the threats that Patrick showed him.
Well, Sean did have to sacrifice a wall in play and a card in hand in Path to Exile in order to get to his 3rd land. I mean, that's still something. You lose a Path to Exile that you could have used on an opponent's creature. You lose a wall that could have saved you a lot of life points. Yeah. It's a discussion point. All right, so here we go. We are into Game 3. This is the decider. Looks like both players have enough land to play the game, and they didn't have to take mulligans. And we're in turn 2, so it might be time to see some magic spells. Ooh, Relic of Progenitus.
Yeah, five treasure cruise was a bit too much.
Is that what it takes? What you think it was the 4th treasure cruise that made him or was it the 5th?
Yeah,
It was probably the 5th, right?
we'll never know, but
We may have to ask him later.
there's a lot of questions I already have for these players. Who knows? Maybe I'll meet some of them in the hotel later tonight. Very impressive magic by, well, really all the competitors so far.
Yeah, I mean, this Relic is going to do a lot of work. When Relic comes down very early and you aren't forced to use the exile portion of it, and you know, every turn you can just tap it and remove one, those 1 cards being exiled out of Patrick Chapin's deck, they're going to add up. Because right now, Patrick Chapin has an empty graveyard, which means any future treasure cruises are still full price. There's a second land for Patrick Chapin. And Blue Mana is going to go and cast a Taxian Probe. So why do we play a blue?
That's he's sending a signal here. He's saying, you know, I know this is going to go long. I know how to win this, and it's not by just being super aggressive here. I really like this because his life total does matter against a deck that is playing Restoration Angel and Burn spells. So depending on what is in Patrick's hand, he just has the option to maybe play things a bit slower.
All right, and slowly is how it's going to get played. If last game was anything like, if we've learned anything from last game, it could definitely go long enough to cast 5 treasure cruises. 3rd land for Sean McLaren, and a pass the turn. So maybe Sean is adapted to this slow play as well. Let's all just slow it down a little.
Yeah, we just saw Sean's hand with the Gitaxian Probe, 2 dig through times, a Supreme Verdict, and a Restoration Angel. That's a clunky hand, but now that he knows that Patrick is also taking this matchup a bit more slowly, I think we are going to see another grindy game.
Which deck is more suited to play this grindy game?
Well, I mean, we are looking at tempo aggro against control, so naturally it has to be the control deck. But Patrick, after sideboarding, says that he has a lower land count, something that we see be very relevant in Legacy or Vintage, so that he is ultimately going to draw more action, and that action can be a few threats, card draw spells, and all these counter your counters, dispels, spell pierces, spell snares, you name it. So I have to say, I kind of like Patrick's approach to this format, to this matchup, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Sean be rather aggressive, or more aggressive than he would usually be in this matchup.
All right, well, right now his hand doesn't really play the aggressive role. The only threat he has is Restoration Angel, which, you know, is a pretty good threat, but, you know, waiting to turn 4 isn't quite the aggressive start you want.
Yeah, I think the big question is who resolves dig through time? Like, does Sean resolve dig through time, and what does he get with it? Or does Patrick resolve treasure cruise, and how does he find ways to attack his opponent's life total?
All right, so Patrick Chapin searching for the land of his choice at the end of Sean's turn. Probably going to be a fetch land. Oh, it's a basic land. Maybe he's planning ahead for the Blood Moon turn.
He doesn't need that much red mana, especially after boarding, where burn spells are his lowest priority.
Yeah, and there are 4 non-basic lands over on Sean McLaren's board. So if it does happen, he's going to be hurting a lot more than Patrick will be. So Thought Scour. Going to put a couple of cards in the graveyard. One of them, a couple of creatures, a Young Pyromancer and a Delver of Secrets. This is all at the end of Sean's turn. Draws a land. It's probably going to come down. Still not a lot of action. A lot of reaction for Patrick Chapin in his hand. So
this is how he sideboarded. This is how he wants to play this matchup. I'm wondering about the graveyard of Sean McLaren, which it appears like the relic is in the graveyard.
Yeah, that's interesting. When did the relic actually get used?
But then it should be exiled. So I'm really not sure.
That whole thing, that land could also be exiled. But now I'm confused why it's in the graveyard.
Yeah, so that's something that it might have been overlooked by the players. It might not really be. Well, it is definitely relevant. with Dig Through Time, or any Delve spell really.
I feel like the relic was just in play and then got slid over. Maybe cards just got put on top of it. He thought it was in the graveyard. It just seems weird. Well, there are 3 exile cards, but was that from cracking or was it just from tapping? Because I know it exiled at least 2 from tapping. All right, so we'll have the judge double check that. Meanwhile, Restoration Angel tried to come down in the turn, but it got remanded. So Sean can have another try at it if he really wants.
Yeah, with Chapin again on two mana, so is just threatening here to remand again or to mana leak, or to just kill the Restoration Angel if Sean goes for it. This is where you want the Harvest Pyre maybe.
Okay, so the relic did get slid over to the exile zone. Looks like it was just cracked for a card, mostly. It may have gotten 1 card out of Patrick Chapin's graveyard, but mostly it was there to draw a card, not waiting for...
Both players just missed this after such a long match.
All right, so there is a Monastery Swift Spear. The beats are going to start, I think.
Turn, what is it? Turn 6, 7?
Turn
Attack
5,
for 1.
Turn 6, turn 5.
Oh, attack for 2.
Yeah, Taxian Probe. Now now Patrick must be the aggressor. He didn't pay mana for that Taxian Probe.
Yeah, things have changed now. It's actually super relevant that the Relic of Progenitors is not in the graveyard anymore, because that just means that Dig Through Time is not getting cast here. Not that I'm saying that it has been Sean's plan, but it's definitely not irrelevant.
Right. Obviously, if by mistake the relic goes to the graveyard and you see there's 3 cards in your graveyard, maybe that starts becoming your plan, because it slipped both players' minds. But, I'm sure it wasn't the long-term plan.
It was a nice draw here by Chapin, who gets to double up on Swift Spears if he wants to do that.
See him slapping himself, trying to make sure he stays focused. He's just going to go for the attack.
Yeah, just playing the control route in this matchup. That's to play around the Supreme Verdict in his opponent's hand. So something that's really interesting here is that the less Patrick allows Sean to be interactive, the worse the Dig Through Times become. And look at that, it's 3 Dig Through Times.
And not only that, the counter magic that Patrick Chapin has been using and probably going to use this turn, thanks to this Snapcaster Mage, which I think is coming down, has been Remand, which doesn't put a card in Sean McLaren's graveyard. So here's a Snapcaster Mage. I think it's going to target a Remand. It's going to not only remand that Restoration Angel, but it's going to be on the board. It's a 2/1. So we have a threat. We have a clock. We have a clock for Patrick
Sean
Chapin.
McLaren would have been better off to again main phase the Restoration Angel, I think. So yeah, I guess Supreme Verdict is still a good trade here, but he doesn't know about the second Monastery Swift Spear yet.
Right. That Supreme Verdict probably isn't going to get much better before Sean McLaren dies this game. So fires that off, can't be countered. Both creatures go to the graveyard. So now we have a nice clean board yet again. Patrick Chapin first to get a chance to add something to the battlefield.
I'm not sure about the Relic of Progenitors. Sean is basically saying, well, I'm going to make my Dig Through Times weaker, but at least I get to make your Treasure Cruises weaker. I think he's kind of conceding the fact that Treasure Cruise might just be the more powerful card in this particular matchup.
It could be. It definitely could be. So Monastery Swift Spear comes down alongside a young Pyromancer. No spells to trigger both, but an attack for 1 is going to bring Sean down to 15.
And that's because Chapin is just boarding into all these reactive cards that we see on the right side. Dispel, Spell Snare, and Is It Charm all available to him. And Sean has to now play against somebody who's basically playing textbook Magic. He got a 2-for-1 against him in Supreme Verdict, but immediately recovers with two creatures on the battlefield. Now has the responses he needs to even push that advantage further.
All right, so an Electrolyze was attempted to try to kill the young Pyromancer, but it gets dispelled, and Patrick Chapin gets a 1/1 Elemental token. Even before, actually, it didn't resolve yet. Tokens in play, the spell's still on the stack. Mana Leak is going to try to target the Dispel, and there is a Spell Snare. 2 Elemental tokens. None of Sean McLaren's spells resolve. All of Patrick Chapin's spells resolve. And now that board of 3 to 4 power of creatures just turned to 6 power. 5 to 6 power.
Sean is now closer to casting a dig through time, but he's also much closer to dying. Yes, and this is where he now has to find an anger of the gods, or maybe a wrath of God, if he even brought that in, because playing against somebody who is playing so carefully and not overextending, you know that you're just going to have to find exactly the right moment to Wrath of God.
Right, and it's very easy for Chapin to get quite a board state without actually overextending. Right now, there's only 2 cards on the battlefield, but there are 5 creatures. So, I mean, Anger of the Gods is a way to get rid of, at very least, Young Pyromancer and all of his friends. And we did see Anger of the Gods last game, and we did see Supreme Freddy this game. So it looks like part of the plan is to be able to just deal with Young Pyromancer with 1 card.
Yeah. Serum Visions revealed Delver of Secrets and Treasure Cruise, as far as I could see. So I think that's going to be a Treasure Cruise next for Chapin, which works beautifully with the amount of counter magic he plays after sideboarding.
Yeah, and if he wants, he could do this turn. He still has mana to play Izzet Charm. He could draw 2, discard 2, pump his Monastery Swift Spirit up even again.
There's another Monastery Swift Spear here, and do we see it? We do.
Is this lethal? I haven't done the math yet. This is a lot of damage. How big is this first Swift Spear?
Some of the tokens have Summoning Sickness, though.
But we still have 2 Monastery Swift Spheres that are just getting bigger and bigger. We have 4 attack from the Young Pyromancer and the 2 tokens that can attack. And we have 2 Monastery Swift Spheres. One of them was in play for 2 Serum Visions and this Treasure Cruise and this Izzet Charm.
So with Sean on 15, the 2 Elementals and the Young Pyromancer will deal 4, which already put Sean down to 11. So he would need, for example, a 6 and a 5 power, or a 7 and a 4 power Swift Spear.
Well, he has a 3 power one already, which means that the other ones is at least 3. So it's probably 5. So it's probably 8.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like enough.
8 and 4 is 12, so he would have to have...
Oh, you think it's 8 power?
No. I think it's probably 5
The sum
power.
is 8. Yeah, if the sum is 8, then it's not lethal, and it wouldn't even be lethal if the sum was 10.
Well, a lot of spells have been cast. We'll find out exactly how big that Swift Spear has gotten.
So
it's a 5 power. 12 total damage in this attack.
Same thing as 6 plus.
Well, that would be 8
Oh,
from
I
the
think he's
Swift
saying
Spears?
6.
Or is he... Well, if he's saying 12 is just the Swift Spears alone, then it's definitely a lethal attack. No, 12 total. So, as I said, it's not going to be a lethal attack.
Well, he gets to cast another spell if he hasn't played a land this turn. Looks like he gets to play a land. This Thought Scour is going to be 2 more damage.
Yeah, then Sean will not be able to play another fetch land, play an untapped mana source, and will have to basically find a mass removal spell while still dodging all possible burn spells and haste creatures by Chapin.
That's a hard thing to dodge.
Thought scar myself, all the triggers.
There is the Thought Scour. It's going to get him another elemental token. Not really the important thing right now. Draws him a card, and it pumps his 2 Monastery Swift Spears.
That's 14.
That's also a trigger that you don't have to
2 visions is
kind of call out. You could just kind of do it.
but you do have to somehow keep track of it.
Yeah.
So I think we're actually seeing an attack for 14. That's 1, 1, 2, and 10 from the 2 Swift Spears, which puts Sean to 1, who is now basically going to look for an answer.
He needs
Dig Through Time.
He needs some type of wrath effect. He needs to kill all of the creatures on the battlefield. I don't see a card in his hand that does it.
Yeah, and the card he drew is definitely not helping.
He can dig through time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He doesn't have enough. It would have to be dig through time, land into Anger of the God.
He drew a Flooded Strand on 1 life, which would have been quite helpful with that, but because of that, it's not. The thing is, even if this works out, you really aren't happy about the board position. 1 life to 11. Your opponent is still on 2 cards. Is kind of out of gas here, but it is a losing battle. I think there is no mass removal for Sean McLaren, who put up a good fight, but look at Patrick Chapin
Yeah,
here.
he tried his hardest, but Patrick Chapin had a game plan. He executed it, and he is the victor. 2-1 over Sean McLaren. Man,
Impressive.
very impressive. You know, Patrick Chapin said he wants to win this tournament, and so far it looks like he's doing a great job. He's 5-0 right now.
He has prepared for all the formats. He's prepared for all the matchups, and he knows exactly what he wants to be doing.
All right, so just a quick recap of what happened in the feature match area. We started off with Kentarou Yamamoto. He won 2-1, actually 2-0 over Owen Turtenwald. That was the Temur Delver matchup. That was versus Pyromancer's Ascension. We just watched Patrick Chapin win 2-1 over Sean McLaren. We didn't get a chance to see the Stanislav Sivka versus Shahar Shinhar match because it was over too quick. As Shahar won 2-0.
Yeah, which does happen if you're a burn.
Yeah, I mean, either you win quick or you lose slow. And finally, there was the Yuki Ichikawa. He won 2-1 over Rafael Levy. So that was round 5. That was awesome. But there was a lot of other matches. You know, we have 24 people in this tournament. So let's find out what happened in the rest of the matches.
All right, thanks very much to Rashad Miller there. Yeah, we will give you the scores on the doors in just a moment, but we've had patiently waiting for us one of Brazil's finest Magic players of all time, Grand Prix Toronto champion 2012, 4 Pro Tour top 8s to his name. He is fighting back after a rough start in Vintage Masters. He's 2-0 with his Arbzan mid-range deck. Let's hand you over to the video wall. It's time for Hall of Famer Randy Buehler with Brazil's Willie Adel.